Hi folks. Sorry, I'm too loud. First of all, thank you that so many people are still in the room. It was a long day, interesting talks. We hope that this roundtable is also of interest for you, and we hope, as Johanna already said, that this is not a thing that we present to you, but that we have a fruitful discussion and that we have an exchange of ideas and needs, what you want and what we think we can provide as an association. What we're going to do is we're going to quickly introduce you to the pioneers of game development in Austria. Going to take about 10-15 minutes, 15 maybe, and afterwards we would like to start a discussion with you to learn, as I said, what you think, what you need and what we can provide. So really quickly, the association was founded last year in November. Pretty obviously for a game developer association, we would like to represent the scene internationally and locally, and that's an important thing. The whole focus of the association is on the business side and on projects, and we would also like to provide services that help people from the university, but also young indies, to help them getting the first steps done in order to do a business similar to what Didi just did before on himself. And we would like to, it's a bit of a bullshit bingo, but we would like to help increase the innovative capacity, because that's a thing that you always hear. You hear that from funding possibilities, that you need to have an innovative product. Yeah, and that's a very important part, because it never happened before. You might, even here, there might be some people who already spoke of a similar matter and presented that they represent something or want to start something. What we believe, or we're going to succeed, is that we have a very strong focus on the political part and the political work that hasn't been done before. Yeah, that's something that we do right now. We would like to cross-link the scene within Austria, and a lot of initiatives that happened before were very focused on Vienna only. We would like to avoid that from the very first beginning, and what we did is, for the last 2.5 years, we actually toured through Austria, and we try to be in every district at least once a year. And quickly, the founding members, and it's maybe of interest also in regards to Bill's talk. The association was founded by natural and not legal persons. A legal person would be a company. Natural persons are an individual like myself, like Michael and Michael. Funny thing is that we all start with M in our first names, but it's a coincidence. And the reason for that was actually Sproin, because Johanna Schober was included in the whole thing from the very first beginning. And when they became insolvent, someone else takes over the company. That means that someone else takes over the voice within the association. And we try to avoid that by having the association founded by natural and not legal persons. So these are the fine young gentlemen who started the association. And of course, there are companies behind them. You see here the wonderful overview of one of the finest companies in Austria. That's a bit of an overthrow anyway. So quickly, what we try to do is encourage gaming culture as an important socioeconomic factor. Again, the important focus is on the business side, not on the art side, not start a discussion about this. We try to focus on the business side and try to make the situation in in Austria better for all of us. Sorry for that one. Yeah. Communication is very important. Again, economic stuff is very important, and we would like to explain to people on the economic side and also the political side that there is a business and an industry here. Because what we all, including you, need to remind ourselves is that even though the scene works very well inside the scene, and we have a good exchange, there's a good structure, good scenery, events, exchange, but the fact is that the outside world doesn't give a shit about us because they don't know us. People don't know that there is an industry, people don't know that there is employment in our industry in Austria, they don't know about the projects, and they don't know about the success we have. And this is something we need to change on a political level. Yeah, and we have 3 pillars. The economic and political one, that's Mr. Fink, here on the far left. He's also running the association. Then for international network, we have Mr. Putz, here, local hero from Bombfish, biggest and important studio in Austria, also worthwhile to say. Yeah, he's doing the international part. And myself, I'm doing the national networking with developers all across Austria. And then quickly, the achievements that we already have, because we already have some. We are always the small part to Germany and the German-speaking countries. And we always say that we are roughly 10% worth of the German market. But we never know for sure or by heart, because we don't know the numbers, because we don't have the right numbers. So what we did as a first step is Michael, Mr. Fink, ran a lot for money, and he got economic study funded by an acclaimed Volkswirtschaftliches Institut in Austria called IWI, and they concluded a survey. And for that regards, thank you for all of you who participated in that one, because we have an impressive return rate of 60%. What does that mean? When the Wirtschaftskammer, the Austrian Economic Chamber, does surveys, they have a return rate of 10 and 15%. So 60% is really, really impressive. Again, this was a first step in order to bring us on the map for political partners and economic partners, because they realized that there's a fruitful scene here that wants to get heard. That was an important first step. A few key numbers from that survey that's going to be announced in November, potentially, in a press conference. We know now that we have roughly 80 companies working in game development in Austria. We know that overall we have 25k employees working in an associated game development. This also includes people that work in retail, do game development support, customer support, and so on. We know that we have roughly 6 million players, active players, that consider themselves also as players. And we know that overall the market is worth 350 million euros. We know, am I allowed to say that the game development number, the revenue per year, are we allowed to say that yet? We know that we have roughly 15 to 20 million euros creating revenue as game development in Austria. So compared to the 350 million, there's a lot of room to grow. Good. As a second step, that's what I already said, we're going to conclude that, and we're going to have a press conference with the Wirtschaftskammer this autumn. It's going to host it, and it's going to be supported by politicians, so we're going to have a good impact also on the press side. Yeah, that's a few things that we're going to plan. It's very, very important to get funding for all of us. So there's one thing to get official funding via grants. The other thing is to get real money from investors. To pitch in front of investors and to convince investors that you have a good product, that you have a good business plan, needs training. And we would like to, as a service, provide these trainings to help you to pitch your game, your project, towards real investors with real money, equity, that are willing to invest in also highly risky projects. We're still lacking organization, even though we started last year for various reasons. So the next half a year, we're going to spend time in organizing ourselves. We are also here, that's why we speak, to recruit you. So the bigger we are, the more support we have from you, the bigger the voice we have in order to bring up matters and subjects to politicians, Wirtschaftskammer, etc. And here are a few things. We don't do this in order to fund the association. That's not the idea. So we need to ask for a little bit of money in order to make it real. So if you would like to support us and join us and help us, and we're going to discuss that later on what that actually means. That's 50 euros a year. If you're a student, it's 25. And then we have the Mitglieder and supporting members who we invite to join the association. Yeah, and we're going to keep traveling across Austria and speak with you guys, and hope we can work together in order to improve the situation for all of us here in Austria. Then we have a few things, actually, which I'm kind of proud of to do this, or hopefully do this with Johanna, is we would like to collaborate. Oh no, that's a different thing, sorry, next slide. And what we already did is also an achievement. We already collaborate with universities. So we have a bachelor thesis in Vienna with TU Wien, where we have created a thing which is equivalent to movie games just for Austria. So we're going to have this database where everyone can submit the company, even if it's a single person company, submit projects to show and be transparent what we already have in Austria. So everyone is invited to go to this page, submit your project, your game, your company, and so on, so that we can show how big we already are. And the second thing that I mentioned before is we would like to create a database for academic papers to show the politics that there's already a lot of things on the academic world happening within the game development in Austria, to show all the papers, all the bachelor and master theses, to make them transparent, to show that the government is already investing a lot in the education, and that it needs a second step and a second push afterwards to help people get on the ground, found a company, create employment, pay taxes. That's the idea behind that. And that's something I would like, hopefully, collaborate with Johanna in the next year. And since we travel a lot, we already have confirmed support from all these fine education sites in Austria. They're going to support that, and they're going to submit all the papers that they create on their university. Basically, that's it. If you want to get in contact with me, I guess we also end up on the fridge afterwards, if the time is not enough in this forum. Otherwise, I would like to start a discussion. If you have any questions, any doubts, just fire away, please. Yes, sir.
Who was it? Hands up again.
Test. So you said that you want to collaborate with the universities. So what does this actually mean besides submitting papers? Because like what I know from Hagenberg, where I studied, there's, at least in my opinion, a great gap between what universities think is going on in the industry and what is actually going on, and what kind of competences are needed. Is there anything like about to change there?
Yeah, what we did, or what we do actually on an ongoing basis, we discuss with them how they could change their curriculum, because what we believe, and I believe strongly, is that when I started 20 years ago, there was no scene at all and no education. So education in Austria started roughly 12 years ago, when the Game Academy, I think, started in Vienna in 2005, which we pushed off with Rockstar because we needed employees. So when education started, they just, sorry to use that word, produces employees. What we need in order to go forward, because there are not enough companies in Austria to provide work for all these students that come out as employees, the universities also need to change a little bit the curriculums in order to focus more on entrepreneurship and to help people getting their project started. What I think as a best practice in Austria is FH Salzburg, because from my point of view, Johanna, please correct me if I'm wrong, is the only university that allows students in their master study to focus on one project. So basically they have an incubator at the university already, and they try to help students during that time to already start a network with other commercial companies, with investors and so on, to help them getting their project at the end of their master study into a commercial project that could turn into a company. And I think we need more of these kind of things. We know that changing a curriculum takes a long time. It's nothing that happens tomorrow, but we do these ongoing discussions with all universities in Austria.
But we also have collaborations with industry, like in master projects, but it's like a half year or 1 year.
Okay, so Johanna just said that the TU Graz has the same thing. It's also projects that go on for 1 to 2 years, and they offer collaboration and help their students to get in contact and start a network with the commercial companies already out there.
From the very impressive stats we've seen in the, I think, second slide. Just to clarify, does this include the whole gambling sector, or is it just media and games?
No, it doesn't include the gambling sector. We have a difference between gambling and gaming. As a pioneers of game developers Austria, we have a clear border between these two parts of game development. Yeah.
Thanks.
It wasn't a question actually, it was a comment on the first question you got about, you were saying there's a module for students to start a company or give them entrepreneurship skills. But there's a UK university where students do a master's degree and there's no classes, you start a company, that's it. So you have a year and you start a company and they give you all the support. One of those companies is doing very well actually in the gaming sector.
Okay.
So I'm not sure if that goes on in Austria, but it's not common in the UK, but the students like that model a lot, I should say.
Okay.
So maybe something to consider. What about a new master's where actually they held classes, just start a company, and let's do that. Anyway, food for thought.
Yeah, thanks for the information, sir. The difference between UK and UK authorities and Austria companies are in the social partnership and in the social taxes that we have. If you start an Austria company, you have 3 years with a very low tax on social taxes, flat taxes and all this stuff. But at 3 years ago, you grow up and you have to pay for the last 3 years ago, and that's a problem. That's a big problem in Austria. We have no easy companies, and in UK it's easier to provide a company.
More questions?
Just following this discussion right now, I think I have an idea, or maybe it's a question. So if in occasions like this, to play Austria or reversed or whatever, if I want to connect us with Förderstellen, like you just talking to ABS, or everything that's not a political money giver than a business investor, should I get in touch with you, or can you set the stage for this to get this done, or also are you the ones to contact if we want to help financing or setting up free events like this? Is this your responsibility?
One of the focus parts of us is to grow up the Förderstellen, local Förderbasis, sprich wie eine Wirtschaftsagentur or ABS. We talk with the spokesperson and the chairman of AWS and the Wirtschaftsagentur also, and the political persons about the changing their mind in our site. And we are, if you have a project and you say, okay, the project is cool, and you come to us, and we will show it. Next year we're starting maybe an award for projects, and we're in touch also with the Bundeskanzleramt and other political persons to focus on new venture capital in our companies.
Okay, but the question is more, so let's say next year at the GameDev Days Graz, I want to have an hour AWS pitching to the people, yes, we have a program for you, and it was designed together with the stuff, so that the people learn and
Yeah.
get to know each other.
In March, it started from FFG, I think so. Is this FFG? Yeah. From FFG and AWS, B2B day in
Vienna, I think.
yeah, in the accounting chamber, and we have a workshop at plant in November for pitching right and for business plan and presenting about in front of economical affairs, and we work on the plan. Yeah, we grow up, and that's step by step.
But you see yourself as the go-to
Yeah.
person to
Yes. Totally.
Thanks.
To add one thing, again, we're just, as Michael said, growing up and starting the organization. What you said, we would like to be at one point this service station that when there's any kind of question, any kind of need, that you consider yourself, you have your red phone at home, and when you would like to dial a number, you call us, and we're here to help, to distribute and collect all the needs that you have, and then distribute it and provide the service and the numbers and the contacts that you have in order to solve whatever kind of issue you have. And I think that's one important thing that we always try to push and remind all of you. We think also that the reason why certain initiatives before us failed, because they just started, and it just be somewhere on a high mountain, and it was difficult to reach them. And people only brought questions, asked for help to them, and thought they would fix it up there. We think that's the wrong approach. What we would like to establish is that we are here for you, and when you have a problem and an issue, you come to us, and we work together on the issue and the problem. And we would like to make you the lead on the problem that you have, and provide with the network and the contacts that we have, and with the possibilities we hopefully are able to provide very soon, to work together on a solution. So it's not that you're gonna put an issue on our doorstep and then leave us and say fix it. I don't think that's gonna work. We believe as a group that we only be successful when you have a problem, that we together work on the problem, that you are involved, that you make yourself useful, so to speak, and that we together work on a certain time period for a couple of months, years, whatever, if it's a difficult problem, but that everyone is involved, and not that some high and mighty, we ask them and they're gonna fix it. I don't think that's gonna work.
Let me ask a question. Who of you ever released or intends to release a game on its own, on an app store or Steam? And how many of you have tried to get public funding? Okay, 10, 20%.
How many succeeded?
How many of you succeeded? Almost all. So, I think those numbers, even in a small scale, show us there's funding in Austria and you will get it. You just need to get up and ask for it. And if you still have questions, then that's our role. But funding isn't there, and it shouldn't be primarily about hand-holding and leading you to the funding. You're all grown-up people. You should know how to do it. But we also think of things like tax reduction for existing game development to make them to make development more attractive for outside investors, for bigger investors, publishers, whoever that is. And the numbers about 15 or 20 million revenue. I think you presented maybe it sounds much, but it's nothing. It's maybe what a grocery store has in yearly turnover. And compared to game industry, I think latest numbers are 160 billion a year. Now 140 billion, 60 billion mobile, 35 PC, 35 console. Those are global numbers for our industry. Hollywood is 40 million, like 1/3. And this is what Michael's job is, to impress politicians and show them the potential. Our numbers can't show them yet. Austria is not even existent on a global game development map. But the industry is, and it's still growing, and this is where we want to be much stronger.
Sorry, there's the question.
I'm sorry,
But you
I
get
got a
the-
microphone. I'm currently working on a PhD thesis on addiction in video games, or video game addiction as it's not officially allowed to be called. And as I understood, you were setting up to intervene with politics as well. So it might be very early to ask this question, because I don't know how far you set up already, but what is your stance on loot boxes or other gambling-related phenomena in video games?
The EGDF, the European Game Developer Federation, which is the parent association of our association, just released a white paper on loot boxes, and it's clearly it's a bad thing. It's something recent business models like free-to-play brought to us. It's very disturbing kind of the market. It generates kind of addiction. Gambling authorities like in Belgium, they are taking the first steps of controlling it. My company, for example, we acquired a big mobile game called Smurfs Village, which is 6 years on the market before we acquired it, and we inherited loot boxes. It was not our invention, it just was in, it makes money. We looked into it, about 7% of the revenue, something we can live without, and we're in the interesting position that the parent company who is owning the Smurfs brand in Belgium, same country where the gambling authorities now make these dramatic moves, they don't want to hurt their brand, their Smurfs, because of some small silly game. And we are working together with the lawyers how to make those loot boxes in a humanful way, because on the other hand, players somehow like it. Some of the newer players, they have never seen something else like loot boxes, a very young generation. And those are sensitive things we need to be aware. It took a long time to set us up in public perception that we are not gambling, that we are not a threat for the general population, we don't kill families, but we still need to be aware of that every day, otherwise overnight we might be regulated again like gambling is, and this is not our goal, we do entertainment. But it's a tricky, complicated question.
Thank you. Yeah. Bringing the mic to you.
Oh, it's okay. I'll just be loud. So you mentioned the revenue share of mobile games versus desktop. Do you have a sense within the Austrian game development community and internationally how that breaks down?
No. Do we have an idea?
I don't know the numbers by heart, but from the experience that we all have doing this for quite some time, I think it's fair to say, since we are a small market, and as Michael said, we are not even on a global scale on the map, the easier platforms to reach with a lower benchmark are bigger in Austria, so meaning mobile and Steam are definitely have a higher percentage than, for example, consoles, because console is still a more difficult step for a young studio or people who start in order to get the license, etc., etc. So I think it's fair to say that mobile has a bigger share in Steam than consoles, for example. But we don't have these kind of numbers for Austria yet, no.
I heard that if you get for a project funding too early, that you maybe don't get the better funding later because there's already money invested and lost because there's no full project going on. So my question is, at what stage should I ask for funding? Should I have a prototype, a good presentation? So in Austria, I mean. Should I calculate my expenses? Should I ask myself how long will this project take? How big should it be?
These are actually a few questions. So I think as a first step, you should do your homework. So whenever you want to bring someone else on board, you know to have your shit together first. So you need to know what is your game, what are your USPs, what are your platforms, what is the target group, etc. Then if you want to bring someone else on board, you need to have a clear business case. That's something you need whether you talk to funding, to national grant and funding, or if you talk to an equity investor. They want to know the numbers, they want to know the possibilities and the risk involved. So these are things that you need to do no matter what. In regards to when you ask for funding, there are again different kinds of funding that are, for example, only focused on prototyping. For example, the creative media in Europe, the European funding that is available for games, that is actually focusing on prototyping. So you just have time for, I think, a year and a half or 2 years to create only a prototype. They don't expect a full working game at the end of the funding time. Then there are fundings, at least in Vienna with Wirtschaftsagentur, that fund complete projects. They can ask for the funding, then you get the funding, and then you can decide when you start the project. You can still kind of wait. I think you have also a time window of 6 months or so before you actually start. Then you report to the funding agency, now I start. Then the clock starts, and then you have, I think, a year and a half or 2 years in order to conclude whatever you submitted. So there are different fundings. For example, Wirtschaftsagentur also funds marketing activities. It's called Creative to Market, yeah, thank you. Where you only get funded for going to conferences, producing marketing material, etc. So as Michael said before, there's a huge variety of fundings available, and we know that's also something we work on as an association to help guidance, to help provide guidance what actually, what kind of funding is available and would be perfect for your individual project. This is something that we discuss actually for quite a time now, and I think that funding agencies start to understand that, and they are willing to help to provide more guidance where to go and what would be the best funding for your personal project. But that also will take time in order for them to understand what we need as game developers.
Anybody else?
Talk to me, please.
Yeah, sure, on the other side.
I'll wait for it. Of course.
Please wait for the mic, this is for the stream, otherwise the questions won't be picked up.
So from experience from other countries, I was wondering if you're planning to collaborate as well with creative industries, more film funds, as this is happening in other countries like Germany, Poland, and I think England to some degree, France.
All over Europe, actually.
Okay, sorry. So I was wondering if there's anything planned with this as well, as there are also some funds in these countries that were created with collaboration at some degree.
Yeah. Well, to get one step backwards, the most important thing is that creative media, movies, and so on was there before. So they have a very good structure and are very well organized. And these businesses mainly live out of funding and grant. When games came up, politics said, okay, this is kind of a new thing, we don't know where to put it. We put it in creative media and movies and film. So we have a problem that we are a tiny part of this whole pie, and we need to struggle and fight in order to get heard and to get our demands and our needs fulfilled. That's a very hard thing to do. That's on European level, because also on European level we are part of the movie industry. We think that they're not as successful as we are, because we have long-term benefits. What we do, the technology that we develop is there for a long time. A movie is out and then it's gone. What we provide technology that all of our companies actually work with for a long time. That's the basis for new projects, new ideas, innovation, and so on. And this is something that we try to explain. And so we rather get divided and get our own thing. That's also nothing that's going to happen tomorrow. But this is something that Michael is working on a European level in order to get the Austrian voice heard within the parent association, as he said. And we do this on a local level with Michael in order also to get heard on the politician side that we are not just part of them and that we actually are worth getting our own stuff and more focus and a bit more love on our end. But it's again something that's going to take a long time.
Thank you.
Is there anything that, because that's what we're actually here for. Michael asked how many developers are here, how many people are requested funding and so on. Now you have the chance to ask us what we can do for you. That's actually why we're here. So I would like to ask all of you, what do you expect from us? What do you think we could help you with? That would be an important and interesting thing. Don't hold back, throw at us. Just something that you want, that you need on a local level in Styria, on a national level in Austria. Take the chance while we are here in order to pick up ideas and things that you want and need that we can bring forward and work on with you and for you. You're all happy? I don't think that. I highly doubt that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it gets better every year. Just get the word outside, especially to the universities, that game development is a thing. And because when I talk about students who are in software engineering, they don't know anything about it. They think it's just some kind of wondrous thing someone does, but that's not a field where you can work in. So yeah, just get the word outside.
Okay. It's still amazing that after 20 years since I'm doing it, some people still doubt that this is a job that you get paid for and that you can make a living off. It's better than 20 years ago, but still sometimes you get very odd questions when you work in this industry and speak to people outside the industry. Yeah. So I would...
Thanks to Johanna, she's educating a younger generation, telling them that game can make a living. By the way, since Chotomir brought up other countries, I almost missed coming here because playing a game called Scum from Croatia, who came out 2 days ago and already did 20 million revenue on Steam in 2 days, done by a small independent developer. It's a battle royale game, unique twist on PUBG, but Slovenia's Outfit 7 maybe is a bit old already. It got acquired for I don't know how many billions by a Chinese company, but those are kind of projects who make politicians aware and opening their eyes that what money there is in this industry. And I hope something like this might come out of you. Just get up and create something and release it.
There was a question over there.
I think one of the biggest problems I noticed is where do we get the money from, and where do game developers get in touch with publishers?
I think it's a totally wrong approach and question. In any industry, it's very hard to say where can I get the money.
No, I mean, for example, we have the Wirtschaftsagentur, and I got a funding there too, but it wasn't especially for game developers. It's also with every kind of art and creative industry, so it's a very, very, very small amount only for game developers.
If you compare to art and creative industry, it might be harder, because art has the general thinking behind this does not make money, this serves for a higher cultural or whatever purpose. If you restrict it on our industry, video games, I can tell you there are many, many publishers around with lots of money who are desperate to spend it on young teams with new ideas. New ideas are very, very rare, but you need to show them something. You need to show them something fun. And this was never as cheap as it is nowadays. All the tools are for free. It's just your work power and maybe assembling a small team. So this is the initial investment, and this can be very easily feathered in Austria because early stage funding, or however you call it, is more than enough. If it's harder later on for medium or later stage funding, it gets very hard, but business angel or government run funding, even for weird things like creative stuff, there is enough, especially for small amounts.
Just one thing.
We are aware of this. May I ask just one thing? Okay, just quick. The Wirtschaftskammer, Austrian Economy of Chambers, focused the last, I think, 10 years on Gamescom when they do something where they support this. So has anyone here been part of the Gamescom Gemeinschaftsstand in Cologne? Michael, yes or no? Okay, yeah. So you've been there and you get kind of a cheap opportunity to participate in a huge conference and to be able to present yourself. That was just a no-brainer for Wirtschaftskammer because we do something for the industry and we go to Gamescom and that's it. What we try to do now is try to be more, bring them more insight and provide maybe other conferences where it's easier to get in touch with investors and publishers. So at the moment we're discussing with Wirtschaftskammer that either they provide funding for more than one conference, which will be difficult. So we're discussing now if we could iterate. And what we're discussing now, because I think that's the perfect stage, even way better than Gamescom to start with, is Game Connection in Paris. I think that, anyone been to Game Connection in Paris? Dill, of course. Michael? No? Oh, okay, sorry. Verband was, Verband, the arena? Yeah, okay. So if you don't know Game Connection, it's a speed dating conference with 30-minute slots where they have the best, and I mean that, the best meet-to-match system in the industry on all events. And you can easily connect for a reasonable amount of money, get in touch in 3 days with many investors, many publishers, many interesting other studios and so on. So if you start from a blank page in order to get a network running, Game Connection will be my first conference to travel to. And we're trying to convince Wirtschaftskammer that they're going to support the conference with a Gemeinschaftsstand, maybe next year or the year after, to help young studios, single person companies, EPUs, to travel to Game Connection. I think that's something that will be helpful and worthwhile, at least in my point of view.
I agree that Game Connection is probably better than Gamescom especially if you have a new thing that doesn't look like much yet or it's not presentable to the public. But I want to come back to the initial funding in Austria point. All the funding options that I have looked at are unfortunately structured in a way that you get only your costs partly funded and then only to a fixed rate. So like if I was to have an awesome game idea and want to sit 2 months on my own to working it, I can only charge myself 40 euros and then only get at maximum 50% of that paid. So then I will have to get by with 150 euros a month to get food and so on. So this is not really feasible for me.
But you don't expect someone giving you the money for free. What we have in Austria is already a good step. They don't ask for shares in your company or a product. If you go to a private investor, they might give you whatever you want, but then they take 95% of your idea. If you have done nothing before, like following a normal, regular market dynamic.
That's right, but for me the difference would be making something or not making something. Right? So with the existing funding I can't do anything, or without being poor for half a year. If I go to the Chinese who don't want to buy things in Austria apparently, except little villages, They may take
Iron Mountain
50%
Interactive,
of my...
hello.
Huh?
Iron Mountain Interactive, hello.
Oh, they're Chinese? I thought they were Korean.
No, they're Chinese. Sorry,
I'm not
Philip,
gonna make the joke.
if I'm wrong. I think they're Chinese.
No, I forgot this. Anyway, if I sell my soul to China, at least I get to make something. That's my point. If I sell my soul to the Wirtschaftsagentur, I stay hungry and I probably don't have enough money to get anywhere anyway. So then I have something after 2 months, which is nothing, and then I have to work off my debts.
In your case, you had, like, when Spoin closed, you said how, let's say, good for the employee it was that you get the money from the Insolvenzhausgleichsfonds, and those are those things which make then the magic happen when you see, I will have money for 4 months left and I'm done with the money, let's do something great.
Yeah, I guess if I had back then had an idea and I would have used the money that I had worked for the last 15 years.
You bought a house.
Yeah, that was money from the bank.
Okay.
Anyway, I don't want to take up all.
No, I think the difference between your mind and your mindset is the money for free from the government is different to handle to the investor money. Investor money, you sold, yeah? But you have to deliver it, and you have to be clear. And if you're not grow up as company, you don't get the money, and the investors in Austria don't understand our structure. Yeah? We have a really big problem in the communication outside the game developer scene. And if I talk to investors or venture investors, they say clear, we don't understand your company, we don't understand your business, tell to us, talk to us, teach us. And that is the point that we are making at the Economic Chamber with the old money, not the publisher. The publisher understands the game, yeah? The publisher understands the development, but the old money don't understand us, and that's the gap between us, our intention, and the revenue share. Yeah? And we have to bring it on our table. That's our decision in this harness.
May I just add one thing?
Are there questions left?
Yeah. Just one quick thing. You mentioned the 40 euros cap on the funding. That's something, if you don't know, if you are an owner or managing director and so on, if you add your own working time into funding, you have a cap of roughly 40 euros. My question is, you had employees under you or your team at Spoin. Do you know the average net hour income of your people? Because that's way lower than 40 euros, you know that. So I think that 40 euros is quite a lot for an hourly rate that you get funded. Because a normal employee gets less than half of it per hour on a net basis. Just roughly a financial calculation, yeah.
Maybe one last input on the educational side. As the pioneers of game developers Austria, do you also have thought about the idea to promote kind of the idea of being a game developer very early on, like in schools, for instance, and try to give an insight to the people and also children there what it's like to be, to work in this field as a very early step in education?
Yes, clearly yes. I don't actually know about Styria, maybe Johanna could say that. I know that in Vienna we have already HTLs, which is high school between 16 and 19, that they offer game development programs. One of the first schools in Vienna that actually started is HTL Sprengerklasse, and there are very good students coming out of it with the age of 19. And Michael and I helped a young team with the master thesis that they had, master or the A-level thesis that they had, in order to create a commercial company with that project. So yes, early stage, and I don't know if Matthias is still here with Lost in the Garden. Yes, sir. Lost in the Garden is actually supporting, I think, Adrian Sprengergasse with the Game Jam once a year. So the industry is actually setting initiatives already at school in order to provide a good view of a potential career in that industry, also in Austria. The baby steps, yes, but we think it's also very important to start early. And yes, there are initiatives, small ones, but there are.
Okay, coming back to what we might expect from you, I can come up with a couple of things. So one thing is what really is needed is a clear website with everything that you showed off here, with maybe with all the opportunities. Austria gives maybe a list of all the communities that are, and also that you push and connect those communities. Graz, Vienna, Tirol, even Klagenfurt, you know. Yeah. Look, I actually don't know all of them, and just bring them together, maybe push, say, Johanna, come with me to Vorarlberg or whatever, or Michael, I want you to speak here. We're doing this on our own somehow, but maybe you could support pushing this.
Noted, yes, thank you.
And yes, I think for the funding is always a thing, and I think the funding, I agree with you, Michi Putz, if you want to start a company or have an idea, you also need to invest something, you know, and if it's your work time or whatever, and but if you can live from it, and that's what Austria really does really good, that's good enough, I think. But what's not good enough is that we as an industry don't have funding. So we are part of art, whatever it is, and that's wrong, because art should be funded, yes, but we should be funded to make money and not art. Or we fund for an art project, that's also fine. There are games that are art projects, and this would be really, really needed. And what also would be really, really awesome if we would have something like the Wirtschaftsagentur also in Graz or in Klagenfurt, or you know.
There is in Graz.
Really?
Yeah, how's it called? You told me that when last time we spoke. SDF, something. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's something similar like that, yeah.
Really, it's just to cross-sell. Yes, we have the most, most revenue or whatever it is with gaming industry in Vienna, because we fund this. We have 5 companies that only live because they got funded by Wirtschaftsagentur, and now they are living on their own. You know, to cross-sell those success stories maybe. Or also say, yes, we invested a lot in unsuccessful stories, but it was worth it, because, you know, people get to know each other. They have a job now in a Bonfish or whatever it is, and all this stuff should be needed. But I think the 3 of you are not enough, so they should build up a bigger support network. But then I think it's really hard, because then somebody would need to cut off time, like you do right now, and that's always hard. And that was the end of the old initiatives always. I think with Game Austria or whatever it was, Matthias knows more, but everything you do for free, you do really passionately, but until a certain time. And then
I agree to a certain extent. If you compare it with ÖVUS, that's the österreichischer Verband Unterhaltungssoftware, which is the collection, the association of the publishers. They're doing this now since I was also founding member with Deep Silver back then, since 2006, 2007, and they're also doing that for free. No one is getting money. I don't think that Austria will ever be big enough that we're going to be able to afford a full employment in these kind of areas.
Well, maybe get more creative with internships. I have a lot of people who want to work.
Free internships, bad thing.
No, not free.
If you do something, you need to pay people
not
for doing
free, not free. Yeah. But it's not that expensive. Only for 2 months somebody could be paid for, I don't know, every company pays a share for an intern to build this web page, for example. You know?
Yeah, I agree.
Like this. Maybe nothing for free.
No, I think that's totally wrong. Please, if you do internships, never do it for free. If you go for a company that offers free internships, don't go there. It's not worth it. Not a good company. Please.
No, I forgot the last thing I wanted to say, but it was really, really important.
I think that's a fridge thing.
Yes, that's a fridge thing, but maybe we talk later.
Maybe one last
one? Because you mentioned that it's like I think we can summarize that this is all about fostering the community, like the industry, create awareness, get finance for projects and so on. But my question would be, because you talk to the political staff that's around Austria and also to the outside, like in Europe and the whole world. My question would be, what is the image that you see like Austria taking place globally? And maybe also second question, because I noticed, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think like right now the bigger projects going on in Austria in game development is mostly contract work, like IPs from like foreign countries. Maybe sounds weird, but yeah. Do you see this as a bad thing to do, like getting a company running and actually working for a bigger company which is not in Austria, or is like the ultimate goal to get own IPs running, like where players know this is a cool game, this is from an Austrian company, and I definitely gonna buy this one because I only get it from an Austrian company. I don't know, like, what's your goal? What's the image you intend?
Coming to your first question about the global image or image outside of Austria, of Austrian games industry, as said before, we have no image. My personal problem is to always fight against that and tell publishers we have talent. They say no, you don't have, or because you don't have any big companies in Austria. And so we need to work even more harder to convince them the opposite, as we succeed in a certain extent. But still, when it's about an investment or increasing the team, it's always the question, where do you get these people from? Because there are no others. This is this one thing which is not ideal, but since we are kinda the first, Rockstar Vienna is too long ago, nobody remembers. Meanwhile, since now we are the first, it's our burden, we have to live with that. And so this for this question, and the other one about contract work on IP, I think this doesn't matter. For example, if we have a Ubisoft studio, let's say in Vienna with 350 people, this would be the one thing missing. Then we are on the radar. If this is an Austrian company, even greater, all the money goes to Austria. If it's Ubisoft, then it goes somewhere else. But then those 350 people, let's assume, get a world-class education, world-class experience. Someday they're going to leave the Ubisoft Vienna studio and start their own companies, and then we get something which happened to a certain extent after Rockstar Vienna closed down. It was somehow too less or bad timing, and those are like economic dynamics which are starting in industry. If nobody from outside is coming, we need to do it on our own.
I think there are two different kinds of businesses. It's totally fair to do only work for hire if you are able to provide for your employees and do cool stuff. I think a good example, for example, is Sumo Digital. They're doing great stuff as a contract studio, smaller parts, module work for bigger AAA stuff, and complete production, complete AAA things. They are known worldwide. And for example, Rockstar Vienna, we only did ports, but we had a revenue of 250 million in 4 years, 5 years. So it was a very wealthy business and a good business. So you can also survive with that. And we attracted, obviously, Rockstar helped, but we attracted a lot of people and convinced a lot of people to come to Vienna. So I think both is fine. I think for the image, you're right. We need an IP similar to Finland or to other countries where they have worthwhile games and IPs that are recognized, and also the country improves and profits from these images and from these games. This is something we're clearly missing. We need one big hit in Austria, whether it's a Ubisoft studio that's working on a bigger Ubisoft title, or someone, as Michael said, anyone here had a chance to win a bet and create something super cool that is very successful. As we have, for example, we always forget that we already have those kind of things. Konami brother with Frost and Black. It's a million seller. Nobody knows. Yeah, so we have those, Michael knows, yeah, I know. But we have those kind of small jewels and gems. We need more of them, and we need to spread the word and make an awareness for all of us inside of Austria and outside of Austria.
What about Ori?
Really? Ori and the Blind Forest. Yeah. I passed that question.
But this is exactly bringing up this image thing. Thomas Mahler is a kind of artistic genius. He has these high expectations of only working with the best people he can't find in Austria. So now we are answering the question again. If we would have more of those, he would be an Austrian studio. His life would be much easier working from Austria instead of using a distributed team, and he would be declared as an Austrian super success story, working on first-party Xbox and be a million seller.
Which he already is.
I think we need to wrap it up now. But again, our pioneers are, I think, happy to be available next to Buffett. So thanks again so much. I think one last wish from my side. Don't forget about the
universities.
Universities,
Yes.
and don't forget about the Graz and Klagenfurt. And
We're here. We're here.
We have a very good community.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for your time. Thanks for inviting us. And thanks for your great work, Johanna. You're very, very great. Thank you.